It was a cold, rainy night in a small dusty town, the kind where the wind whispers secrets through the empty streets and every shadow seems to hide a story. Inside the dimly lit farmhouse, 11-year-old Lily sat trembling under the old Cowboy'S table, her tiny frame pressed against the rough wooden legs. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Just moments ago, her stepfather, a man with a dark gaze and a temper as unpredictable as a thunderstorm, had stormed into the room, furious over a spilled glass of milk. But now, something far more urgent had erupted. A shrill ringing phone shattered the tense silence, cutting through the storm outside like a blade. Lily's hands clutched her knees tightly as she peeked out from her hiding spot. The phone's shrill echo echoed through the house, relentless, insistently demanding to be answered. She knew who it was, her real father, the one who had been trying to reach her for days. But she also knew that answering could mean risking her life. Her stepfather's shadow loomed just beyond the door, and her mind raced. She had to decide. Should she risk everything and answer, or stay hidden and hope help would come? The phone kept ringing. Lily's breath hitched. Her eyes darted around the room. No sign of her stepfather's return, but the tension in the air was suffocating. She remembered the stories her mother used to tell her about brave girls. Girls who fought against odds, who refused to give up. Her small fists clenched, and with a surge of courage born from desperation, she reached out and grabbed the small, worn phone from the table. As she lifted it, the screen flashed with the caller ID, unknown. Without hesitation, she pressed the answer button. A crackling voice, urgent and strained, came through. Her father's voice, trembling with worry. "Lily, listen to me. You're in danger. Your stepfather isn't who he says he is. He's been lying to you about everything. You need to get out now. Find a safe place. I'm coming for you, but you have to be brave. Can you do that?" A shiver ran down Lily's spine. Her mind spun with confusion and fear. Why was her stepfather dangerous? What was he hiding? Every instinct told her to run, to escape this nightmare. But her stepfather was just outside, possibly listening, waiting for her to make a mistake. She could hear muffled footsteps approaching the door. He was coming back. In that moment, Lily made her decision. She knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. She had to trust her father's voice, her instincts, and most importantly, herself. Carefully, she whispered into the phone, "Okay, I'll try. I'll find a way." Her voice was barely more than a whisper, trembling with fear and determination. As she slipped the phone into her pocket, she looked around for an escape route. Any way out of this suffocating nightmare. The rain outside intensified, the wind howling like a wolf in the night. Lily slipped out from beneath the table, her small feet barely making a sound as she moved towards the back door. Every step was a risk, every breath a prayer. She knew her stepfather might hear her, but she also knew she couldn't stay trapped. She had to run, to hide, to find safety. Just as she reached the door, it creaked open. Her stepfather's face appeared, twisted with anger and suspicion. Lily froze, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might give her away. But then, the sound of her father's voice echoed in her mind. Urgent, commanding her to trust her instincts. With a burst of courage, she pushed past him and darted into the night, into the rain-soaked darkness. Lily ran through the muddy fields, her mind racing with the voice's instructions. She remembered her father telling her to head toward the old abandoned barn, where she might find refuge. Her steps splashed through puddles as she pushed forward, the storm masking her movements but also making her journey more dangerous. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every gust of wind could give her away. Meanwhile, her stepfather cursed behind her, searching in vain. But Lily didn't look back. She knew that her life was about to change forever, because what had just happened wasn't ordinary. It was history in the making. That phone call, that moment of truth, had sparked a chain of events that would ripple through time. A girl's courage, a man's secrets, and a town's silent witness to a story that wouldn't be forgotten. In the darkness, Lily reached the old barn, her heart pounding with hope and fear intertwined. She pressed her back against the cold wall, clutching the phone tightly. She had answered her call for help, and now she was ready to fight for her future. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain. Her story was just beginning, and it would be remembered forever. In the quiet darkness of that stormy night, as Lily pressed herself against the cold wooden wall of the abandoned barn, her trembling hands clutched the phone like a lifeline. Her mind raced with fear, but beneath it all, a steady, unbreakable fire burned. An anchor rooted in a vow she had made long ago, a promise that had become her moral compass in the chaos. That vow was to her mother, who had loved her fiercely and had always told her that family was more than blood. It was a bond of love, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind now, soft but firm. No matter what, Lily, you must stay strong. You are never truly alone if you hold on to what's right. Promise me you'll fight for your future. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she remembered her mother's gentle yet resolute gaze, the way she had held her tiny hands and whispered stories of heroism and hope. Her mother had been the light in her darkest days, a shining example of moral courage, someone who stood up against injustice, who loved fiercely, and who believed in doing what was right, even when the world seemed to turn against her. That promise, made in a whisper of a moment, was Lily's sacred vow. To honor her mother's memory by never giving up, by fighting against the darkness threatening to swallow her whole. Lily had carried that vow deep inside her heart, like a precious treasure. It was the reason she had survived this night's nightmare, her reason to run, to hide, to stay strong. Because she knew that her mother's spirit was with her, guiding her, urging her to be brave. She remembered the stories her mother told her about heroes who refused to surrender, about standing up for what was right, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Those stories had become her armor, her moral weight, her reason to keep fighting in the face of despair. In this moment of peril, Lily's resolve deepened. Her vow was not just a promise. It was a moral debt she owed to her mother's memory. The promise to be brave, to be kind, to never forget that love and courage were stronger than fear. Her mother's voice echoed again in her mind. Hold onto your heart, Lily. That's where the truth lives. No matter what happens, stay true to what you believe in, and you'll find your way. That unbreakable bond, the sacred connection between them, was her guiding light. It was a promise made in love, sealed in tears, and now, in her darkest hour, it became her shield. She knew that her strength didn't just come from herself but from the love she carried for her mother. A love that no darkness could extinguish. That love was her moral compass, her reason to fight, her reason to hope. As Lily pressed her hand over her heart, feeling the steady beat within, she made one more silent vow. To honor her mother's memory by holding on to what was right, by standing tall even when the world pushed her down. She would carry that love, that moral weight, into whatever future awaited her, because she understood that her story, her fight, was bigger than herself. It was a testament to the unbreakable bonds of love and the enduring power of hope. And so, with the storm raging outside and her heart pounding fiercely within, Lily looked toward the faint light filtering through the cracks of the barn. She knew that her journey was just beginning, but she also knew this, her moral purpose, rooted in that sacred, unbreakable promise, would carry her through whatever came next. Her vow was her anchor, her moral weight, her legacy. And in that moment, she understood more clearly than ever that love, sacrifice, and unwavering faith in what's right could change history itself. In the dim, dusty silence of the abandoned barn, a single dusty lantern flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the cracked wooden walls. Lily sat hunched in a corner, her small knees drawn tight to her chest, her eyes staring into the darkness as if searching for answers in the shadows. Her face was gaunt, streaked with dirt and tears, but it was her eyes that betrayed her, haunted, hollow, carrying a weight far beyond her years. The night's chaos had left her feeling lost, broken, and utterly alone. Yet in this quiet desolation, her soul reflected the environment around her, a fractured mirror of her own inner pain. She looked down at her trembling hands, trembling not just from fear but from a deeper, more persistent guilt. Her fingers brushed over a faded photograph tucked into her pocket, a picture of her mother, smiling, vibrant, alive. That smile felt like a ghost now, a distant memory buried beneath layers of grief. Her mother's face was etched into her mind, a reminder of love lost, promises broken, and a past she couldn't escape. Lily's fingers traced the edges of an old, tarnished medal hanging loosely around her neck, a relic from a childhood she barely remembered, earned through battles she'd never truly won. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of a family she'd once believed in, now shattered beyond recognition. The old letters scattered across the floor caught her eye, their faded ink telling stories of hopes and dreams that had long since withered away. She remembered reading them over and over, trying to find meaning in words that now seemed distant, meaningless. They were her only link to a life before the darkness, before her father left and her world crumbled. Every line, every word, was a reminder of a time when her family was whole, before anger and violence tore them apart. Guilt wrapped around her like a shroud. If only she had been braver, if only she had spoken up sooner, maybe her mother wouldn't have had to leave, maybe she wouldn't be hiding here now. Her eyes drifted over the worn, torn fabric of an old blanket draped over a rusty chair, her only comfort in this forsaken place. The environment mirrored her soul, a broken, abandoned space filled with relics of a past that refused to fade. Every dent in the wall, every scratch on the floorboards, seemed to echo the scars within her heart. Her mind replayed the last words she'd spoken to her mother, the frantic promises made in whispers, promises she now questioned, promises she feared she'd broken. A small, battered journal rested on the floor beside her, its pages filled with memories and regrets. She opened it, the cover cracking under her trembling touch, and read the words her mother had written in a shaky hand. Remember who you are. No matter how dark it gets, the light inside you will find its way. Lily clutched the journal close, tears spilling anew. Her mother's words were a fragile thread tying her to hope, to a past that refused to die. Yet, in the silence, she felt the heavy burden of guilt. Guilt for not saving her, for not protecting her family, for the life she now led in hiding. She looked around once more, at the empty space that once housed love and laughter, now haunted by memories and loss. The scars on her soul felt as deep as the scars on the barn's weathered wood, wounds that hadn't healed, wounds that still throbbed painfully with every heartbeat. She knew she carried the weight of her broken past with her, even in her silence. It was part of her now, a silent testament to everything she'd lost and everything she still struggled to hold on to. In this solitude, Lily understood her humanity more clearly than ever. She was not just a girl hiding from danger. She was a survivor, scarred, battered, but still standing. Her pain was real, her guilt justified, but her hope was stubborn, refusing to die. The environment mirrored her inner landscape, a place of decay and loss, but also of resilience. Because beneath the scars, beneath the guilt, there was a flicker of strength, a quiet determination to forge a new path, to find redemption amid the ruins. As the flickering lantern cast fleeting shadows across her face, Lily closed her eyes and whispered a silent prayer, an unspoken vow to herself and to her mother's memory. She would carry her scars as a reminder of her humanity, her capacity to endure, and her unwavering hope that someday she might heal what was broken and find her way back to the light. And in that quiet, fragile moment, she made a silent promise. She would keep fighting, not just for her survival but to honor the love she'd lost and the family she'd mourned. A testament that even in darkness, the human spirit could endure, scarred but unbowed. In the shadowed quiet of the night, Lily's trembling fingers clutched the battered phone, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. She was hidden under the old Cowboy'S table, the rain outside pounding against the roof, her mind racing with fear and hope. She had answered her father's desperate call, and now she understood that her fight was just beginning. She needed allies, people who could stand with her against the darkness threatening to consume her. She knew she couldn't face this alone. First, she reached out to Jack, the old friend from her mother's stories, a man whose name was whispered with respect in the town. Jack was a weathered cowboy, his face lined with years of hard living, but his eyes still burned with loyalty. He had once been a sheriff, a guardian of justice in a town that often turned a blind eye, but now he was just Jack, an outsider who carried the weight of his own past. When she called him, his voice was gravelly but steady, like a rock in a storm. "Lily, I've seen a lot of wrongs in my time. You can count on me. I'll be there no matter what." His promise was simple but powerful, loyalty incarnate, a human value that refused to fade. Next, she dialed Marco, a former soldier whose courage was hard-earned on distant battlefields. His voice was calm, commanding, yet gentle, like someone who had seen the worst of humanity but refused to be broken. Marco's past was filled with sacrifice, and he believed in standing up for what was right, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. "Lily, I don't know what you're facing, but I know what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. I'll be there. Your courage is my call to action." His words carried a quiet strength, a promise that he would face any danger to protect the innocent. Then, she thought of Jesse, a motorcycle outlaw with a reputation for redemption. His eyes were sharp, hardened by years of running from his own demons. Yet beneath that exterior was a man who believed in second chances. Jesse's past was stained with mistakes, but his sense of justice had never faded. "Kid, I've made a lot of wrong turns, but I know what it's like to want to make things right. I'm writing to you not just because I owe you, but because I believe in redemption. We'll stand together and rewrite this story." Jesse's loyalty was raw and unfiltered, a reminder that even the most broken could find their way back. Lily then called Evelyn, a wise woman who had lived through her own storms and emerged stronger. Her voice was warm, steady, filled with understanding. Evelyn believed that wisdom came from experience, from knowing when to stand firm and when to bend. "Lily, I've seen the darkness that tries to swallow us. Trust in your strength, but listen to your heart. I'll be there, guiding you through what's coming. Wisdom is our shield against injustice." Her presence was a beacon of calm, a human value that provided clarity amid chaos. Finally, Lily reached out to Marcus, a gentle giant with a heart full of hope. His kindness was contagious, and he believed in the goodness of people, even those who had lost their way. Marcus had once been a loner, an outsider, but he found purpose in protecting others. "Lily, I might be the quiet one, but I'll be loud enough for all of us. Hope is what keeps us going, and I promise, I'll be by your side. We're stronger together." His loyalty was rooted in his unwavering hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, kindness and faith could ignite a revolution. As Lily listened to their voices, each one a different thread woven into the fabric of her fight, she felt a flicker of strength ignite within her. These allies, each embodying vital human values, loyalty, courage, redemption, wisdom, hope, were more than just voices on the line. They were the living proof that injustice could be challenged when united in purpose. Together, they formed an unbreakable chain, a coalition of humanity standing against the darkness threatening her future. In that moment, Lily understood that her fight was bigger than her alone. It was a collective stand, a testament to the resilience and unity of those who refused to let injustice prevail. As she whispered her thanks into the phone, she knew she was not just surviving. She was beginning to change her story, rewriting her destiny with the strength of her allies behind her. And in that unity, she found the courage to face whatever came next, knowing she was never truly alone. The first light of dawn crept slowly over the horizon, casting a muted glow across the endless stretch of highway. Lily sat huddled inside a battered truck, her small frame trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. Every bump in the road felt like a heartbeat echoing through her chest, a reminder that her journey was both a literal escape and a symbolic quest for freedom. As the engine rumbled beneath her, she pressed her forehead against the cool glass, closing her eyes for a brief moment. Memories flooded her mind. Her mother's gentle voice telling her she was brave, the night she had hidden under the Cowboy'S table, and the whispered promise that she would find safety. That promise now fueled her as the storm of her fears clashed with the hope of tomorrow. Outside, the sky was still streaked with dark clouds, remnants of a violent storm that had swept through the night. The rain had battered her hiding place, washing away her sense of safety, yet it also seemed to cleanse her of her fears, replacing them with a steely determination. The land was vast and wild, a symbol of her own uncharted path, a landscape that mirrored her internal storm. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of possibility, but each mile also carried the weight of her sacrifice, the price of keeping her promise to escape the man who threatened her life. In the quiet hum of the engine, her mind wandered back to her childhood memories, sunlit afternoons in the fields, her mother's lullabies, and the stories her grandmother told about resilience and hope. She thought about the old cowboy who had hidden her under his table, a man whose rough exterior hid a heart full of kindness. That day, under the shadow of fear, she had learned that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single act of courage, and that every step forward was a rebellion against the darkness that sought to consume her. Now, as the dawn's light grew stronger, Lily felt the symbolic weight of her journey. It was more than just escaping her stepfather. It was a voyage into her own strength, a quest to reclaim her voice. The storm outside was a mirror of the turbulence within her, a reminder that life's storms could break you or shape you into someone unbreakable. She remembered the night she had hidden under the table, trembling but listening for her father's voice, for a sign of safety, for hope. Each moment of that night had carved a new layer of resilience into her soul. The highway ahead was a symbol of her hope, an uncertain, winding path that promised freedom but demanded courage. She knew the road wouldn't be easy. Storms could still rise at any moment, both outside and within her. But she also knew that every mile she traveled was a step toward a new beginning, a chapter where she could rewrite her story. The landscape, with its sweeping plains and distant mountains, reminded her of the vastness of her potential, how far she could go if she kept moving forward, no matter the obstacles. As the truck crossed a deserted stretch of highway, Lily's thoughts drifted to her promise, to herself, to her mother, and to the brave man who had hidden her. That promise was a fragile thread, but it kept her tethered to hope. Every mile she put behind her was a testament to her resilience, a symbol that even in the face of danger, she could choose life, choose hope, choose to fight. The journey was a price she paid, each moment a sacrifice layered with courage and fear, but she knew it was necessary. The rising sun finally broke free from the storm's grasp, spilling golden light across the land. Lily watched it with wide eyes, feeling the warmth seep into her bones, a silent affirmation that her journey was not just about escape but about rebirth. The landscape was changing, and so was she. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained, reminding her that life's greatest storms could lead to the most luminous dawns. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her promise settle into her heart. The road ahead was long, and the price of her bravery was high, but she was no longer just a frightened girl hiding under a table. She was a survivor, a fighter, a girl forging her own path through the storm. With every mile, she was rewriting her story, one of hope, resilience, and undeniable strength, knowing that her journey, both literal and symbolic, was shaping her into someone who could face anything. And as the highway stretched toward the horizon, Lily understood that her greatest adventure was just beginning. The truck rolled to a slow, Tense stop outside the small town's humble clinic, a place where stories of hope and heartbreak often intertwined. Lily sat frozen, clutching the worn fabric of her jacket, her eyes wide with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. The journey had been long, filled with storms both literal and metaphorical. But now she was here, standing on the brink of what could be her salvation or her greatest test yet. The air around the group was thick with silence, an unspoken weight that pressed against the cool morning breeze. As they stepped out of the vehicle, the early dawn cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, illuminating the figures in a way that made them seem larger than life. Each person carried their own story, their own scars, but today, they moved as one. A silent, formidable force, ready to face whatever chaos awaited inside. The group's presence was like a stone dropped into still water, rippling outward with quiet power. They formed a loose but deliberate circle around Lily, an unspoken shield. Their stance was steady, unwavering, eyes sharp and focused, bodies aligned in silent readiness. No words were needed. Their collective silence spoke volumes. An unbreakable vow to stand against injustice, to fight for her safety. In that moment, Lily felt the weight of their unity, a visual power that transcended words. The man who had threatened her, her stepfather, was inside that hospital, a looming shadow waiting to be confronted. But this was more than just a confrontation. It was a statement. The group's composition was stark and powerful, each member a symbol of resilience and defiance. The old biker with his leather jacket and roughened face, standing shoulder to shoulder with the young soldier whose eyes carried the burden of past battles. The wise woman, her face calm and knowing, her presence like a quiet fortress of wisdom. The outsider, the man who once had nothing but now refused to let injustice prevail. They didn't speak, but their collective stance radiated a message. We are here, we are united, and we will not back down. The silence stretched like a stretched canvas, waiting for the first move to be painted with action. Their unity was a visual symphony of strength, an array of contrasts that blended into a single indomitable force. The streets around them were empty, save for the faint hum of distant life, an audience that watched from afar, sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. The town's quiet seemed almost reverent, as if it understood that history was being made in this small, battered group. Every detail, the clenched fists, the steady gazes, the way they stood shoulder to shoulder, added to the mounting tension. The air was charged, thick with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken promise. We will protect her, no matter what. As they moved closer to the hospital entrance, the visual impact intensified. The group's formation shifted subtly, tightening, becoming more deliberate. It was as if they had become an unbreakable wall, a human barricade of hope and defiance. Through the windows, Lily caught a glimpse of her stepfather. His face tense, eyes filled with anger and fear. But outside, the group remained unmoved, their silence louder than any shouted warning. They had already made their statement. The moment was no longer just about a girl seeking safety. It had become a battlefield of strength, courage, and unwavering resolve. The visual power of their presence was undeniable, an embodiment of justice that refused to be silenced. This was the calm before the storm, the pause before the inevitable clash. The small town, with its quiet streets and humble buildings, bore witness to a moment that would ripple through history, a testament to the power of unity against injustice. As Lily looked at her protectors, she felt an unspoken reassurance. They were more than just allies. They were her shield, her voice, her hope. And in that silent, powerful moment, she knew that whatever came next, they had already won a victory of presence, an impact that would be remembered long after the clash was over. The sterile, flickering fluorescent lights of the courtroom cast a cold glow over the tense gathering. Lily sat quietly in the corner, her small hands clenched tightly in her lap, her eyes fixed on the man who held authority, Judge Whitmore. His presence was commanding, a figure of respect and fear, But beneath that veneer lurked something darker. Manipulation, moral corruption, and a twisted sense of control. He was the one who was supposed to uphold justice, yet today, he wielded his power like a weapon, cloaked in the guise of morality. The room was thick with unspoken accusations, each word carefully chosen, each glance a calculated move in this silent duel of minds. Lily's heart pounded, not from fear of violence but from the battle of integrity raging within her. She knew the truth that her stepfather, the man sitting across from her, was a predator hiding behind a badge, a man who twisted moral authority into a tool for manipulation. His voice was smooth, honeyed, but laced with condescension. He spoke of morality, of protecting the community, of doing what was best, all while subtly undermining the courage of those who dared to oppose him. His words were a web of lies, spun with the finesse of someone who knew exactly how to wield his influence to silence dissent. Every phrase was a calculated move to intimidate, to make others doubt their own morality. "You see, Lily," he said softly, his eyes never leaving her. "Sometimes, the truth isn't so simple. People can be misunderstood. You have to trust those in authority. They know what's best, even when you don't see it yet." His tone was gentle, but beneath it lurked a dangerous undercurrent, an attempt to make her question her instincts, to accept his version of reality. Lily's mind raced. She knew that this was a mental duel, his words a weapon, her silence her shield. She remembered the nights she had hidden under the Cowboy'S table, the feeling of safety in silence, the quiet voice inside her that knew right from wrong. She had to hold onto that voice now, even as he tried to drown it out with polished words and false concern. Her thoughts flickered to her memories of her mother's stories of justice, of standing firm against corruption. She understood that this was the moment that would define her courage not through violence but through her unwavering moral stance. She refused to be manipulated into accepting his twisted version of morality. "I don't trust words that hide the truth," she thought quietly. "He's trying to make me doubt myself, to make me believe I'm wrong for speaking out. But I know what's right." Her resolve grew stronger with each passing second, like an unbreakable wall built from her inner conviction. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing her resistance. His smile was thin, a mask of civility hiding the calculation beneath. "Lily," he continued softly, "sometimes, innocent people get caught in difficult situations. It's our job to see beyond the surface, to understand the bigger picture." His words dripped with moral superiority, but Lily saw the trap. It was a subtle attempt to justify his actions, to turn her into a pawn in his game of moral ambiguity. She knew the difference between justice and manipulation. Her silence was her protest, an assertion that she refused to be silenced or deceived. In her mind, she pictured the faces of those who had suffered under such corruption, those who had been silenced by the very authority meant to protect them. She remembered the girl she had seen under the Cowboy's table, hiding not just from her stepfather but from a system that could be just as corrupt. The mental duel was a battle of ethics, her unwavering belief in what was right against his carefully crafted lies. She understood that her voice, though small, carried the power of truth and justice. She didn't need to shout or threaten. Her integrity was her weapon. As the courtroom's tension thickened, she realized that this was the true battlefield, an arena of intellect and morality. Her integrity stood firm, unyielding against the manipulative words of the man who wielded authority. She knew that the power to change the course of justice lay not in brute force but in standing unwavering, in refusing to cross the line into corruption herself. In that silent, intense moment, Lily's mind was clear. She was fighting for truth, for justice, for the innocent. The battle was not yet over, but she was winning it with her unwavering moral clarity, knowing that her strength was rooted in her refusal to be manipulated into accepting falsehoods. The courtroom's silence became a testament to her resilience, a victory of ethics over intimidation, of truth over deception. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the recording device that had been secretly hidden beneath the courtroom bench. It had been there for weeks, capturing every word, every hesitation, every lie. The tape was now the only thing standing between Lily and the truth, an unassailable record that would unravel the web of deception spun by Judge Whitmore, the man who had used his authority to manipulate and silence her. As the judge sat at the bench, eyes fixed on the screen, the lawyer pressed play. The room's tension thickened with anticipation as the recording crackled to life. At first, it was faint, an unintelligible whisper of static, but then, clearer. It was her father's voice, trembling yet resolute, confessing everything he had kept hidden. "This isn't right," he said. "I can't keep quiet anymore. Whitmore, he's been abusing his power for years. He's been manipulating cases, threatening witnesses, silencing anyone who dared to speak out." The voice was raw with emotion, a stark contrast to the calm, calculated tone of the judge. Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. Her heart pounded as the truth spilled forth. Her father revealing how Whitmore had been fabricating evidence, intimidating victims, and even coercing confessions that he knew were false. The words cut through the room like a lightning strike, illuminating the darkness that had hidden beneath the veneer of justice. "He's a liar," her father continued. "He's been pretending to be a protector, but he's just a manipulator. I recorded this to show everyone. The truth is out now." The tape revealed a series of clandestine conversations, secretly recorded over months, where Whitmore's voice was unmistakable, smooth, sinister, and dripping with moral arrogance. He boasted about his influence, about how he could sway juries, bend the law, and conceal his crimes behind a shield of authority. The evidence was irrefutable. As the recording played on, the room erupted into whispers. Lily's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of relief. For the first time, she saw the mask slip from the villain's face. The man who had wielded authority to silence her, to threaten her safety, was exposed as a criminal, no longer a figure of respect, but a predator hiding behind a badge of righteousness. The moral landscape shifted dramatically. Justice was no longer a distant hope. It was a tangible, blazing truth. Whitmore's face paled, and he stammered, desperately trying to deny what was laid bare. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recording had been authenticated, and witnesses were ready to testify, people who had been coerced, threatened, and silenced by him. Lily's mother, who had been too afraid to speak out before, stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "Judge Whitmore manipulated us all. He destroyed lives with his lies. This recording proves everything." The room was flooded with a wave of moral clarity. The truth had been buried for so long, hidden beneath layers of deception, but now it was exposed, an unrelenting, devastating revelation. The moral release was profound. Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders, as if decades of silence and fear had been erased in a single moment. The injustice that had haunted her family was finally being acknowledged. Her voice, once silenced, now echoed through the room, an anthem of courage and truth. As the judge was led away, his facade shattered, Lily knew that this moment would be remembered forever. It was a turning point, an irrevocable shift in the fabric of justice that had begun with a hidden recording and ended with a collective moral awakening. The story would be told for generations. How a little girl hid under a table, how a recording uncovered the buried truth, and how justice was finally served. That day, history was made, not through violence or revenge, but through the unwavering power of truth, courage, and integrity. Lily's quiet act of hiding and the unassuming recording had changed everything, sealing her place not just as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience and moral victory that would inspire countless others to stand against corruption, no matter how deeply it was buried. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence, the kind that settles when the weight of truth finally breaks through the layers of deception. Lily stood quietly, her small frame trembling slightly, but her eyes held a calm that belied her age. She had come so far, from hiding under a cowboy's table in fear, to standing here now, a symbol of resilience. The truth they had uncovered was undeniable, and justice, at last, was beginning to unfold. The man who had hidden behind a badge, cloaked in authority and corruption, was now exposed before everyone. Judge Whitmore's face was pale, eyes darting nervously as the evidence was laid bare. The recordings, the testimonies, the irrefutable proof of his moral decay. He had believed himself untouchable, shielded by his position, by the respect that the community once blindly gave him. But respect built on lies is a fragile thing. The courtroom's murmurs turned into a collective breath, a shared acknowledgement of the moral reckoning taking place. The moment was electric, yet respectful. An acknowledgement that justice does not come from revenge but from unwavering integrity. Lily's voice, quiet but resolute, echoed in her mind. She had promised herself long ago that her strength would come from truth, not fury. And now that promise was fulfilled. Her silent act of hiding, her courage to speak out, had sparked a wave of revelations that toppled a corrupt man. As the judge was led away, the community's eyes looked to her, not with pity, but with admiration. She had become a beacon of hope, proof that even the smallest voice can echo loudly enough to change history. Amidst the emotional peak, the tone remained respectful, an acknowledgement of the human capacity for both darkness and redemption. The people in the room understood that justice was a moral act, rooted in dignity and truth, not in vengeance. Lily's mother approached her, tears shining in her eyes. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, whispering softly, "You did this, sweetheart. You kept your word. You faced your fear with honesty. And now, justice is served." Lily nodded, feeling the warmth of her mother's embrace and the unspoken promise that they would rebuild, stronger and more united. The community's support was palpable, a collective moral victory that extended beyond the courtroom walls. The man who had once wielded his authority to manipulate, intimidate, and silence was now just a fallen figure, an example of what happens when integrity prevails over corruption. But this was not just about punishment. It was about restoring faith in truth, in justice, in the moral strength of those willing to stand up even when the odds are against them. The courtroom slowly emptied, but the story was far from over. The ripple effect of this moment would continue to inspire others to speak out, to stand firm against injustice, and to believe in the power of truth. For Lily, this was a moral victory, a testament to her courage, but also a reminder that justice arrives not through revenge, but through unwavering integrity. Her silent act of hiding and her brave voice had changed everything, making history not just in the pages of a case file, but in the hearts of everyone who believed in what was right. As she turned to leave, she felt a quiet sense of dignity. She had kept her promise. She had faced her fears. She had shown that even in the face of darkness, truth and integrity could shine brighter. And in that moment, she knew that justice had arrived, humble, respectful, and enduring. As the courtroom emptied and the weight of the day settled into a quiet hum, Lily stepped softly toward the exit. Her small frame carried the quiet strength of someone who had faced darkness and emerged into the dawn. Behind her, the room remained filled with the echoes of truth, an unspoken acknowledgement that justice had been served, not through violence or vengeance, but through the unwavering moral clarity of honesty and courage. She moved silently, her footsteps light, as if walking away from a chapter that had defined her but no longer confined her. The image of her leaving was symbolic in its simplicity, like a star slipping below the horizon, making space for the night to give way to dawn. The darkness still lingered, but the promise of new beginnings shimmered quietly on the horizon, waiting to be embraced. Outside, the air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of rain-washed earth and the promise of renewal. Lily paused for a moment on the courthouse steps, her gaze lifting to the sky, an endless expanse of stars beginning to flicker into view. The stars, distant yet luminous, symbolized hope, resilience, and the infinite possibilities that lie beyond pain and darkness. Just as the stars had patiently waited through the night, so too had Lily endured her ordeal, knowing that her truth and her strength would someday light her path forward. She took a deep breath, feeling the quiet affirmation that she had kept her promise, to herself, to her family, and to the truth. In the distance, the open road stretched out before her, a ribbon of possibility winding through the landscape of her future. It was a symbol of her journey, one that had started in fear but would now lead her to healing and new beginnings. She knew she couldn't erase the past, but she could choose her direction. The road was wide and uncharted, inviting her to step into the unknown with hope and courage. She reached into her pocket and gently touched the small, worn pendant that her brother had given her. An unspoken vow of protection, of brotherhood, of standing together even when circumstances tried to divide them. That promise, like the road before her, was a reminder that she was never truly alone. She was part of something greater, a community, a family, a moral kinship rooted in truth and resilience. As she turned her back on the courthouse, her figure gradually blended into the horizon, a silhouette against the soft glow of sunset. The sky was a canvas of warm oranges and pinks, whispering of endings and new beginnings. The fading light symbolized the closing of one chapter, an era of fear and silence, and the dawn of a new chapter, filled with hope, strength, and the promise of renewal. Her journey was just beginning, and though she was small, her heart was vast with the courage to face whatever came next. Nearby, her brother and the community who had stood united in their moral stand watched her go, their silent support a testament to the power of collective hope. They knew that her story was a beacon, shining brighter now that the darkness had been pierced by truth. The stars above seemed to twinkle in silent applause, a celestial chorus celebrating her resilience and their shared victory. In the quiet, expansive space of the open road and the glowing sunset, Lily's silhouette faded into the promise of tomorrow. The pain of the past was still part of her story, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it became a foundation, a reminder of her strength and the enduring power of integrity. She walked forward, guided by the stars and the hope that she, like the road ahead, was limitless. Her journey of renewal, of moral victory, and of healing was quietly beginning, carried on the wings of hope and the silent promise that even after the deepest night, the dawn will come.